We began conceptualizing Under the Gun while we were working on The Black Iris in winter 2002. The basic plot was fleshed out by the spring, but production was delayed due to the time it took to order equipment, so we didn't start filming until May 25th. The first thing we did was the opening scene. It was shot in the same location that we had shot parts of In Pursuit. It was a 6-level parking garage. We later went back there. We had to take some shots of Gagne, the opening shots of him in the stairwell, and that included one shot that was a record 64 takes. Now this is a very special effects intensive scene. We had to add gunshots, smoke, and sparks to almost every shot. We accomplished all of this using Adobe After Effects. For the gunshots, we used stills from stock footage overlaid with lens flares. The smoke was also from stock footage. The sparks were created in Maya Paint Effects. Now the hardest part of probably this entire film was making the CG helicopter. It was modeled and rendered in 3D Studio Max. It was rendered in 4 passes: the diffuse, the alpha, the specular, and another pass that served as the lumimat for the reflection. Now the reflection was accomplished by using a displacement map on the background footage. We also added another layer that served for the shadows of the helicopter on the building, and then we added lens flares in the brightest of the specular highlights. We revisited these shots to re-render the motion blurs of the rotors to try to find a better method because we felt that the default in 3D Studio Max didn't make them look real enough. The other part of the opening scene was shot in a data center. It was actually done after James had gotten his haircut, and the difference is quite obvious from the rest of the scene. The contents of the first scene was the only stuff that made it into teaser A. We wanted to get it done by mid-June, and because of this we also didn't have a title at the end. Our title problems continued for a number of months. We'd gone through evasive maneuvers and for the longest time Crossfire. Most of the titles that we sifted through came from a thread on a fan films forum, and that's where we finally decided on Under the Gun in October. After the teaser, the next thing that we shot were the interiors of the helicopter. Now originally we had planned on blue screening these, and we did shoot them in front of the blue screen and composite them. But then in December we felt that it didn't look real enough, and a big thing was that the camera didn't shake realistically as if the helicopter was in motion. So we went back and we shot in the interior of a car, and we had someone to shake the car while the actors were inside of it. The next scene we shot was the Henderson briefing. We did it in Donnie Copeland's house. We thought the wall was a little bare, so we threw in a picture behind Gagne's head.
Once you get the information, screw it up.
Then we shot small parts of the Prague scene. We used that same parking garage. The Stanford Hospital and the Stanford Yukon building. After that, we shot the Merrick scene. We used pretty much the same location as Mike Harris's first appearance in a Dassault digital film, which was Mr. Downtown. And the one shot of Dimitri, played by Elliot Wilson, was done a couple months later in the fall and added in. Throughout most of June and July, we held off Under the Gun to finish Mr. Downtown. Now, we would do this again in August for Aux Armes Citoyens, and September through November for Amalgamated Metal Screw Company of Bismarck, North Dakota, and Nice Night for a Murder. Now, we did go back to the data center in July to shoot a part of the Prague scene and also a deleted scene that was going to happen in the tropical island at the end, where Henderson and Gagne meet each other and have a conversation. You're in no position to make demands.
Neither are you, Mr. Gagne.
Also at this time, we shot the security guard looking at the monitors in Prague. Now, if you look at the center monitor, he's actually watching a scene in Smeared Spionum, where Dave Landis' voice has been dubbed over in Czech. Also, in the end of July, we made the original establishing shot of Prague. It had over 100 layers of footage from Cove Island Beach and photos of the city. But then in November, we ended up totally recreating and redoing the shot, making it look more realistic by going about it in a more simple manner. In September and October, we were shooting most of the Prague scene at West Hill High School. Charlie Vandergrift was shot in the courtyard, the same courtyard as Aux Armes Citoyens, with Mike Mino, who was dubbed over with Scott Yeager's voice. A lot of times we didn't have the actors or the props or the locations that we needed. That was one of the reasons why Scott Yeager had to voice Mike Mino's part. Jake Nabel was called back to the same location as the Merrick scene, but this time in the daylight. He was also shot in our cellar for the interior of the van. Ilya Bubel was shot in front of the construction site that was used in Mr. Downtown, and his car stood in for the van. In the auditorium, we shot the firefight. I go like this, you come in, bang, bang, in, you get out, shoot, don't squint like that. Damn it! Yep. And then the other guards who were acting opposite us were not shot until 2 months later. Another scene was added where Vic briefs the team. This was originally shot in the auditorium.
Shoot his way out. Okay. Now I'm in serious mode. Before I was in puzzling mode. No, not puzzle mode. I was in light and jovial mode.
We later reshot at the same train station used for In Pursuit and Aux Armes Citoyennes. After Nice Night for a Murder was completed, we officially got back into Gagne mode by releasing Teaser B. After then, we really started production back up, and we finished the Prague scene at the school. For the escape, we flipped the shots to make it look like it was a European car. It was at this point on Thanksgiving, after watching everything that we had, that we decided to recut most of the picture and the sound for basically all of the scenes. We also decided to shoot some establishing shots and some inserts, and reshoot some of the shots that we weren't happy with, such as the security camera and the alarm. The beach scene was the next thing that was shot. It was done in below freezing weather, and there was snow on the ground, and all the trees had lost their leaves. We had to make sure that for most of the scene, the winter landscape was out of focus, because this is supposed to take place during the summer.
You're so bright! Ow, it hurts so much! Move that way a little bit. There you go. Okay.
The original van explosion shot made an appearance in Teaser B, but we were never really happy with it. We then recomposited the shot using many layers of stock footage of explosions composited with lens flares and debris. A CG model of the van was animated to flip over, and that replaced the two-dimensional photo at the end of the shot. This same method of using stock footage was used for the explosion shots of the facility at the end. For the wide shot, we had to take a two-dimensional smokestack and make it fall into the fire. This was done by masking out that section and then keyframing the position and rotation on a duplicate layer. For the shot of Henderson's plane leaving Prague, the Prague skyline was composited onto beach footage. The sky was also extended up at the top. A CG plane was rendered from 3D Studio Max along with a motion tracking ball so we could track the movement and animate the position keyframes with that extended sky to duplicate the camera movement. The interior of the plane was shot against the blue screen, and there's faint stock footage of a skyline that could be seen out the window. The last sequence was shot last. We'd already taken a few shots at the school for the exterior of the facility, and we continued by shooting the guards falling and Henderson in the control room. The fight between Gagne and Henderson was canceled many times until finally we were able to do it in January, and that led to the 1-week delay of the release of the theatrical trailer. Now, Charlie Vandergrift choreographed much of the fight, and it was taken in 2 rooms that are on top of the Westfield Auditorium, one of which was the same location as the guard portion of the Prague firefight. After that, we shot the short scene in the helicopter using that same parking garage. We then finished up compositing the last few CG helicopter shots. Then shooting wrapped after filming Vic running at the school and then Vic and Ross at the beach. Under the Gun was completed January 13th, 7.5 months after production began.